You're listening to the Raw Reaction on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
Angry Tensai and Big Dick, we will do the squash match on the Stone Cold podcast, simultaneously competing against us. Look at the ratings in the morning, folks. Big Dick, how you doing today?
Dude, I'm doing good, brother. I'm doing good. I don't think it's going to be pretty, man. I feel like the Stone Cold podcast had his little run at the top, and I think it's time for the American heroes, Big Dick and Angry Tensai, to take it down.
Before we get started, Big Dick, did you get a chance to see the two squashes of this weekend? That being the Pharaoh and Ronda Rousey.
You know what? I got to see the Pharaoh do his thing and make some more history.
Not only did I hear you were at the Monmouth Haskell in the motherland of New Jersey, but I heard that you actually won a little contest, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it was actually a pretty big squash match itself.
What did you win?
I won 2 tickets to Toby Keith.
How did you win?
I was the greatest American Pharaoh dressed person in the entire building. I was the American Pharaoh. I still am the American Pharaoh.
Were you the American Pharaoh in a human form or in a horse form?
I was in a human form. More.
Excellent, man. Excellent. Well, that's good to know. Monday Night Raw tonight. I have to say I liked some of the combinations tonight and some of the things they tried tonight. My very favorite skit tonight or thing tonight in honor of the great Rowdy Piper, who is no longer with us. Piper's the man. We're both huge fans of his. Tonight was more of a salute show on top of the show itself. We actually saw almost a Piper's Pit-like Miz TV in which Kevin Owens and Cesaro squared off. And I have to say I really enjoyed the initial dynamic between Kevin Owens and Miz, where Kevin Owens talked about what a big fan of the Miz he was and how he owns all of his movies on Blu-ray DVD. I really enjoyed their dynamic together.
I was going to say, you know what? I'm sure that's probably exactly how he got all of the Miz's movies, by watching them straight on DVD when they came out.
Hey, it's the only way to get them, right?
Exactly. No ticket stubs from the movies for this superstar.
Yeah, well, I have to say, Owens and Miz definitely had a little bit of chemistry together. I thought they were funny. Unfortunately, before they really got going, the segment was cut off by Cesaro, who, basically coined the phrase in the segment of walk Owens walk, because Kevin Owens keeps walking out of matches, which is embarrassing to the sport, the fans, and his opponents. And he wanted to fight Owens right now. And Owens said, I've accomplished more in 3 months than you've accomplished your whole time in the WWE. And Cesaro took offense to it. And they almost squared off right there. The Miz was very excited about it. And then Owens, who was getting along so well with the Miz, said, you know what, Miz, why don't you back off and let the two guys that are actually capable of fighting do the fighting? And the crowd went, woo, and Owens proceeded to walk out. So a little disappointing there, but as Owens walked out, he decides to run back in, pushes the Miz into Cesaro, knocking both Cesaro and the Miz down. But Cesaro caught him. He popped up and got him in what looked to be the giant swing, but Owens was able to get away. There's no doubt this match will happen at SummerSlam, and I'm really excited about it. How about you? I love the segment.
Yeah. You know what? I mean, this is really the first. I mean, we've seen interaction going on, but this is really the first item that's really brought them head to head and put into perspective, hey, there is going to be a SummerSlam match. So I really like this, and whether it's booked or not, it's happening now, and I think that this could very well be the best match of SummerSlam.
Agree.
There's nothing stopping it from happening.
I'm excited. I have to ask you, I'm noticing, a real contrite tone in your voice. Is this because of Piper?
Yeah, man. I mean, Piper was a legend of her day. You know what? He reminds me and this probably not a good thing to compare, but his heel capabilities and just sort of the badass way that he's gotten over the crowd, Owens reminds me a lot of the late Roddy Piper as far as a heel being able to connect with the crowd as a badass ass kicking heel.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, I mean, I think in a lot of guys you could see Piper. I think Ambrose, not only just the resemblance, but his mannerisms are Piper too. I mean, there's a good crop of guys in WWE right now, and even the Miz is really good on the mic, but you know, Ambrose and Owens are top flight guys. And I mean, honestly, man, if you're TNA, like, Owens was out there for years and they never even thought to bring him in. I mean, geez, man, this guy's been sitting there the whole time. I mean, he could have been in WWE the last 5 years.
Yeah, exactly, man. It's just a matter of, hey, you know what, WWE brought him in, worked him correctly, and turned him into a freaking monster. You know what, I'll tell you what, it was also great tonight was Seth Rollins promo coming in. He really did well. And I loved the promo at the beginning of the show.
What'd you like about it?
I thought it was funny, and it almost turned him from being a chicken shit heel into, hey, you know what? I want a piece of John Cena now. Like, I'm gonna kick his butt. Cena was in the office, or he wasn't in the building that evening, so he sort of laid out the challenge for him. Hey, I want to challenge you, as opposed to the other way around. Yeah,
the crowd seemed to really support the fact that Rollins put Cena on the shelf, which I thought was pretty funny. They tried a couple of different things tonight. I thought the Owen segment was a little different, and I thought this segment was a little bit different, especially with Rollins calling out Cena, and Rollins talked about how he's going to hold both the U.S. title and the world title. But he said tonight, after mocking Cena, the U.S. Open Challenge gives him an idea. He decides to have a WWE title Open Challenge. But unfortunately for him, he was looking, he can only fight an opponent that was under 6 feet tall and under 200 pounds. And he was hoping for El Torito to come out. But unfortunately for him, it happens to be Neville. I thought that was kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, you know what? I think that everybody was expecting it to be El Torito, and sure enough, when Neville came out, the crowd just absolutely exploded, and they knew, hey, you know what? He's probably not going to win, but shit, we're going to have an entertaining match here.
These two, I want to say, fought in Neville's second match in WWE, and I have to say, Neville, I mean, him and Rollins really have a lot of chemistry, and I remember their first match was very good. These two are top flight athletes, and you know, I could watch these guys fight over and over and over again. This was an excellent match. Neville, he came very close to winning the WWE title, but unfortunately for him, even with the red arrow, Rollins had the presence of mind to get his put on
the rope the second time.
Yeah. I mean, the guy, you know, the whole thing, it just delivered, and Neville is great. And I just hope, you know, I read a Mark Madden article a couple months ago, and I didn't like it because he talked about how, as good as Neville is, he's destined to be the next Evan Bourne. And I couldn't get behind the article because I was just like, Evan Bourne was really, although they're, you know, similar skill sets, Neville's built like more like a Benoit, not making a joke, than he is like Evan Bourne. Like, it was hard to believe like Evan Bourne could beat people, whereas Neville just looks like he's short and he's like just enormously jacked and strong as shit. And, you know, I'm starting to think to myself, like, man, Neville really never wins big matches. You know, he didn't win the match that counted against Wade Barrett. He didn't beat Jericho in Japan, and he's lost a couple key matches to Rollins and a couple others. So, you know, I haven't really seen Neville have that signature win. He's definitely had signature moments, but he hasn't had the signature win. So I hope they just, not that he has to win every match, they just got to be a little bit more careful with him, I think. Do you agree?
Yeah, he needs to win his next pay-per-view. I think they've done a good job of projecting him, having him look good in losses as opposed to some wrestlers out there. But yeah, like you said, I mean, I think they need to give him a W or two at the next pay-per-view, even if it's somebody who's not WWE champion material. Give him somebody like the Miz to beat.
Well, they clearly trust him enough to put him in this match tonight. So, that's a good thing. There is a degree of trust there. So that was good. I thought was funny, and I'm not trying to go in order, but I thought it was funny. The next match, the New Day and the Ascension versus Los Matadors and Lucha Dragons. What a bizarre match this was, but it actually, it was fun, and the tag team division's established. What'd you think of it?
You know what? I don't know. I mean, this is just, I feel like they're trying to put too many teams into the tag team contendership. I mean, having the Matadors and the Ascension out there, I don't think are really needed. I think everybody's pretty realistic that there is going to be a championship match at the next pay-per-view, and I think New Day is probably the team that's going to face them. However, I wouldn't necessarily mind seeing the Lucha Dragons maybe get in there as a three-way dance or something.
Yeah.
It's been pretty hot. It's been a solid tag team as of late. They've been a solid tag team since come up, and you just got to give a little bit of a push.
They did get a good win here.
They got a what?
They got a good win here. I mean, they got a win that was as clean as it was going to get.
Yeah.
And I was surprised Kalisto took the fall. Kofi hit him with Trouble Paradise to get the win. And it looks to me like they're going to get the next title shot again against Primetime Flyers.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. It'd just be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how it's booked to keep it fresh and keep the feud going, assuming that's what they end up doing.
No, I didn't see the Lesnar Paul Heyman segment. What was it? How was it? What was it like?
No, that was interesting. It was a little bit later in the show. You missed. We missed. Well, I guess we did. We talked about the Owens and Cesaro standoff. That was that was pretty entertaining, if you ask me. I don't want to say a tribute to Roddy Piper, but I feel like it was a good segment, and it really helped to put over matches where sometimes it just serves as booking Miz in a match, just to good in booking another feud, and also continuing to push Miz as a huge heel.
True.
So, but as we were saying, with the Brock Lesnar return, Paul Heyman is out in the ring, basically reminding everybody, hey, you know what? Undertaker, he interrupted during the title match, picked a fight, and basically cost Lesnar the championship against Seth Rollins. Like, Seth Rollins had to win or had to lose, and Undertaker came out and cost Lesnar that.
Was Lesnar there?
Lesnar, he came out to an absolutely huge reaction, and people were going ape crap.
This was the one piece. This was the one part of the show I missed. So Lesnar actually came out, and there was no he didn't fight anyone or anything.
No, it was basically just sort of just a stroking of his ego out there, saying that, hey, you know what, this is going to be a big match. Putting over the enormity of this match.
Right.
I think they had their segment before or right after the first Raw after SummerSlam. They had their segment to really build this match, and I think this was just sort of done to, you know what, get Lesnar even more stoked and just remind people, hey, you know what, this match is coming up.
Well, it tells you that Undertaker will issue some sort of response next week. So that might be how they play this off for the 10th, and then the 17th, they'll have their big, which will be the go-home show. They'll have a big interaction. That's what I would assume will happen.
Exactly. I mean, you definitely don't think Lesnar's going to be at 3.
Who wins that match? Vic, who wins that match?
You know what? I think Taker wins it.
I do too, and I don't know if that's a good idea. I think he will win it too, and I don't think it's a good idea.
I don't think it's necessarily a good idea. I don't think it's a bad idea. I think that they could stretch it out to either SummerSlam or next year's pay-per-view. Next year's at WrestleMania.
Jeez.
I sort of like the idea. I wouldn't mind having a rudder match be at next year's SummerSlam, or not SummerSlam, Survivor Series. And sort of making it as, Survivor Series, it's sort of become like the fourth.
If they do it at WrestleMania, I think Undertaker has to get his win back and retire right there. Period.
That's the thing. I don't necessarily know if they're going to push him back that long because I mean that's a long time for a payoff. I mean, I get that they waited a year and a half, but I mean they were pretty much waiting for Taker to say, "Hey, I want to come back and get."
Well, that's what I don't understand. Undertaker wrestled at WrestleMania last year. Why wouldn't you just pick Brock Lesnar last year?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that they sort of realized, like, well, it's like, you know what? It's like during the summer is notoriously the start of the slow part of the WWE season after SummerSlam. People just really go away until Royal Rumble usually. So I think that having Lesnar versus Undertaker in a match is something that
you want to get. You know what though? You want to get Lesnar over or Rollins over as a heel and a mega heel. You have Undertaker come in number 30 of the Royal Rumble, win it, takes on Taker, WWE title, main event WrestleMania. Rollins cashes in there and wins the title. Could you imagine that? Wow.
Yeah. Well, who did you take the title from?
Roman Reigns.
This year, or you mean this past year?
I would have had it. Like I'm saying, like imagine they would have done it this year. You know, if they were going to have Taker and Lesnar fight again, I mean, might as well have it at WrestleMania for the title.
Yeah, but that's almost one of our problems. Where I mean, a Taker match in and of itself is not necessarily I mean, it's a pay-per-view quality match. Like you can put him against Neville, and it's a pay-per-view quality match. You don't need to put him for the title. You're basically taking away.
No, I understand that, but I'm saying if you were making that moment for Rollins, a career maker, I mean, wow, could you imagine Undertaker's redemption match for the title at WrestleMania, and Rollins would have cashed in at that moment rather than Roman Reigns? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that would have been freaking pretty crazy having Lesnar, Undertaker broken up by Seth Rollins. But at the same time, I don't think 2 straight losses for Undertaker is necessarily going to be ever happen, especially at pay-per-view, especially at this point in his career. I think
I really hope he doesn't WrestleMania again. I mean, there's no need to do it. He lost the streak. You know, don't embarrass him. He's lost.
Yeah, exactly. And unless you know what, he says, hey, this is my go home show. It's in Texas, and I want to pass the torch at some point. Like this is where
I don't know. I guess to me,
even if he does pass it to Lesnar, then that's cool.
Yeah.
But I mean, it has to be epic match, 45-minute hour match, and it's really sort of like Lesnar's first win against him.
You know how I was talking about how they tried different things tonight, and I thought Rollins did a good job with the world title challenge and I know you liked his mic work, and I liked the Owens Miz thing. You know what else I really liked a lot was when Bray Wyatt and Luke Harper were backstage giving their little speech about whatever they normally talk about, and Sheamus happens to be in the back, like that area that with the Wyatt family. I really loved that thing with, like, although he seemed to not necessarily completely trust them, he was back in their home, so to speak, in that dark, dingy area in the back. And Bray Wyatt made the comment that the enemy of my friend, or the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And I really dug that segment backstage, and I saw a little dark side to Sheamus. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? And the thing is, that's a good line and a good way to put it, and a good way to put into words for a match like this, because I feel like there's always a match like this leading up to pay-per-views, whether it be 2 one-on-one wrestlers, or in this case, 2 what looks like it's going to be a modified Wyatt family versus modified Shield matchup at the next pay-per-view, and throwing a couple more wrestlers in there to sort of work on their in-ring work, get over their chemistry, and at the same time protect them from taking a fall, or a fall, or a clean fall at least, from both sides. You can sort of have an out where Roman Reigns gets a win against Sheamus or something like that, and it advances the pay-per-view, or not the pay-per-view, but the anticipation of seeing a match like that. So I like that quote a lot. It was a good way of putting it, and it's just a lot of it's just sort of the way I think WWE books matches. I mean, you see this a couple times a month where
it's sloppy booking. It's easy to put 3 matches together in one match and you're your main event.
Exactly. And you know what, in this case, I think it's going to be, I think, the next paper to be Ambrose Reigns versus Bray Wyatt and Luke Harper.
You know, people talk about lazy booking being like factions, and you have like the 2 main leaders of the factions fighting in a pay-per-view, and then, you know, the leader of that faction basically beats all like the underlings the weeks previous. I always like that. To me, it just builds up the reason why the big match is a big match, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I think that's a better way to book.
Exactly, but at the same time, I think the WWE is sort of in a little bit of a disadvantage here because you're not saying. I feel like they're saying you can't necessarily say with this like, hey, you know what, Rollins can be the feel good guy on this and win like 3 matches against these other people when Dean Ambrose is also sitting there in the wings.
Good point. Well,
I mean, I think it's like 1A as far as the league.
I have to say there's a lot of chemistry between Reigns, Ambrose, and Orton. Obviously between Roman Reigns and Ambrose because they were Shield. But I thought the 3 of those guys actually worked pretty well together. You know, I don't know if you thought the same thing.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, I think that we come to expect Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns to really put on a good match together. But like you said, I mean, I think Randy Orton, I mean, he's just a pro. He's a pro in the ring. He gets out there and he has attitude. He wants to put on a good fight. And you can always guarantee a solid performance.
Why aren't Reigns and Ambrose or Wyatt and Harper the tag team champions? Like, I get you're trying to build like a strict tag team division, but I think it's okay for them to do both as long as they're, you know, wrestling tag team title matches consistently. And even if it's on SmackDown or tag team title matches are on Raw, you know, you have like 2 obvious, like, think about that. Like, Wyatt and Harper have a lot of history. Reigns and Ambrose have a lot of history. Even Miz and R-Truth have a lot of history. Those 3 teams immediately can take the belts off tag team champions, like, without a doubt. You know? And yeah, I don't understand why they don't.
You know what? I didn't like Luke Harper and what's his name, Eric Rowan back a while ago, and this was like maybe a month and a half ago. We were saying, okay, you know what? They came out and they dominated. It was absolutely dominating tag team match against somebody who's a contender. I forget who exactly it was. There are some players that might have been part of a New Day or somebody, but they came out, they basically kicked ass, and they're sort of like, okay, are they a tag team now, or are they just sort of just put them in a placeholder to both come back and be Wyatt's henchmen again? So I think that's, I think it'd be a good fit for them. But at the same time,
they really didn't dip their toe in. I get what you're saying. They didn't really go for the belts.
After they didn't push it. They didn't push it the way they could have.
I understand. My point being though is you have these established teams that don't really vie for titles when they can. I mean, it doesn't mean they have to fully commit. I just don't like. To me, think of it this way: if you throw Ziggler and Cena together, they shouldn't beat the primetime players, in my opinion, because they're not normal tag teams. They don't have that cohesiveness. But Ambrose and Reigns, I mean, obviously have that. I mean, they're part of arguably the greatest trio ever in WWE. And the other guys, Harper and Wyatt are too. But, you know, neither here nor there, I guess. Speaking of, and that was a good match on the last, but I do want to point out the faces, I thought, really did a number on the heels in this match. There really wasn't that cohesiveness between Sheamus, Harper, and Wyatt, and it allowed Orton to score the RKO on Wyatt after some miscommunications with Sheamus, and then Sheamus got speared by Reigns for the win, and the faces definitely stood tall and got a pretty convincing win here. So, it was interesting.
Yeah, and I think that booking, I think that was almost more in and of itself. Just a sort of a feel good ending. You have somebody like, you have Dean Ambrose giving a real big shout out to Roddy Piper, all the face team wearing Piper shirts, and really just sort of putting a happy ending on the show, in honor of the Hot Rod. So I think that was part of the reason. I think that they advanced both viewed quite well, and it'll be interesting to see with next pay-per-view how they actually end up booking this. They book, it looks like it's going to be Reigns and Ambrose versus Wyatt and Harper, but do we have a situation now where Eric Rowan comes back to the next pay-per-view and interferes for the title, and we get a new Shield member come up at some point.
Maybe they just grabbed Sheamus because he looks like Rowan. Sheamus Rowan.
Yeah, I was gonna say they both have the blazing red hair.
Well, yeah, we'll see. Speaking of factions, what do you think of the Submission Sorority? What do you think of that name?
I don't know. I think it's trying a little too hard for team names there. I mean, Team BAD, whatever. They sort of look like badasses, but the Submission Sorority, I don't know. I think you're trying too hard. You don't need a
Submission Sorority.
You don't need I don't think you necessarily need a catchy team name immediately. I mean, you call
I don't mind bad. I think it's terrible, but Submission Sorority.
It's just tacky.
It could be an all-time terrible faction name. A couple horrible ones were the Dudes with Attitudes, which was Sting, Luger, and the Steiners. Dudes with Attitudes was definitely one of the worst. The Union, and that's it, was the name, The Union, which was Ken Shamrock, The Big Show, and Test and Mankind. That was a terrible faction name. And they were a terrible faction. They only lasted a couple weeks. And one of the other worst factions was PMS, Pretty Mean Sisters, which I believe was Jacqueline, Miss Jacqueline. I want to say Brian Shamrock and Goldust's wife. Horrible factions.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? There's some, and even, you know what? I think that in and of itself, you talk about like the Mega Power or whatever, the Dudes with Attitudes, like a bad faction. That's a great team. But then you think of
the Dudes with Attitudes, the team was a great.
Yeah,
group.
I think it as a whole. I mean, you can look past it, and you can say there's like Right to Censor. I mean, they were never a main event pay-per-view type team, but they were an awesome freaking faction.
Right to Censor is a great example of if you have a cool gimmick and a cool faction, like they were so hated and they had the worst theme music, they had the worst outfits, and it was like, it was such a drag. They were so perfect to what they were trying to do, and that's a great example of a good gimmick for a faction working. That's a great example.
Yeah, I mean, I almost feel like that's something where you can push. I think you push a New Day towards that level. I mean, I don't see them as a
New Day's cool, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can push them that way. I mean, they're that hated as a faction, but I almost feel like you need like some sort of maybe a manager or something.
The Truth Commission. There's a terrible faction. Recon, Sniper, and Kurgan. That was a terrible faction.
Or what was it? Wasn't there also a faction with Major Guns and what's his name?
Misfits in Action. That was a terrible one. And what was the one that they feuded with? The Dirty Bastards, which was like Man, who were they?
Was it Radicals?
Filthy Animals.
Okay. Yeah, and that was like Raven.
Kidman. No, you're thinking of the Flock. Horrible factions. Anyway, you know what would be a better name for Charlotte, Becky Lynch, and Paige? The Powder Puff Girls, because they have all different color hairs.
Yeah. Really anything like this sort of submission sorority, just sort of tacky.
Yeah, well, they beat the Bellas tonight, that being Charlotte and Becky Lynch. That's a pretty big win.
Yeah, you know what? I think I like having all these new superstars in there because it's sort of, you put together like 15 new different feuds. Like you have new feuds going on until Royal Rumble with or at least new feuds where matches lead up to everything at pay-per-views. But I think that they're sort of they're good with feuds now for a while. They can interchange pieces, say, okay, these guys will work good together. Here's the title change at some point possibly. Right. Here's some 3-on-3 matches to put over the group feuds between the ladies, stuff like that. I mean, I'm not for giving the women 2-3 matches next pay-per-view, but at the same time they can have a match for the championship or possibly like a 3-way tag team match at a pay-per-view and not have it be absolutely terrible.
Well, you're right. The Divas are loaded now. They got the right The right players, man. The right players. I think they also had, Paige versus, I want to say, Jimmy Uso's wife. Or the Uso wife. Who's the Naomi Uso?
I did not see this match before.
Well, you know what? It wasn't as good as the tag team match. Naomi Uso, started screaming oos, oos, oos in the middle of the match. No, just kidding. Naomi, lost. She was submission sorority. She subbed to, Paige. Paige got a good win. The one thing, speaking of submission, I liked was Brock Lesnar said that, or Paul Heyman actually said, and I was just looking back, on YouTube, then the mute button could be your best friend. He called Undertaker a submissive bitch. That's a strong statement.
That, you know what? It really is. I mean,
wow.
That just builds up more and more and more hate toward, and I feel like they are doing this, but they don't necessarily need to, sort of trying to pigeonhole Lesnar as the heel in this match. And I don't think they really need to, because I think people are so excited for this match that it's not necessarily a match. You need a face and a heel. This is one of those matches where it's going to be, people are going to be so excited that they're just going to be so stoked to see.
So Mark Henry, Rusev. Henry is totally jobbed out to Rusev. Super Kick City. What do you think of, Mark Henry just becoming a little jobber boy?
You know what? I hate to say it, but I mean, he's made his money, and him winning or losing, it's not a big deal. He doesn't need to be protected. He can put over, he can put over some of the younger superstars. I think Rusev, like, in a situation like this, I think Rusev needs a win.
If this was 4 years ago when Mark Henry was having his run, Rusev wouldn't have lasted 3 minutes with him. Let me just tell you that right now. I'm all for the big youth movement in WWE. I love seeing Rollins go over and Ambrose and all these guys, but, you know, Rusev can beat the smaller guys, but man, I just don't like seeing Mark Henry go down like that, man. I think Rusev has gotten probably the best push, as crazy as that sounds, of any of the WWE superstars.
Oh yeah, for his reaction, he wasn't getting a huge reaction either, even as
but he's beating everyone.
He was getting great booking, but I mean, he wasn't over as a mega heel really until he faced Cena.
Yeah.
At a series of matches.
The WrestleMania with the tank.
After he started losing to him, I mean, he got sort of booked down. He got booked down a good enough. He's not anywhere near the title picture in the near future. He's fighting for like the IC strap.
WrestleMania with the tank. That was the best.
What's that?
WrestleMania with the tank.
Yeah. That was pretty cool.
That was cool. What else?
I've ever seen.
Are you going to go see Straight Outta Compton?
I'm thinking about it. I'm going to go find the most ghetto theater I can in Atlanta. Wow. And Kevin could edit, and he doesn't like out. He's used to that right now. Like, ghetto could be, like, it could be a rough area with, it could be like the Irish Mafia in the area, and it wouldn't like the way I am because I'm not quite Irish enough for him.
I just don't want you going down the Hogan route.
Oh, no. I mean, I'm talking like, it could just be, it could be a bunch of people who see me as, hey, you know what, this guy's not like us. Whatever. I think that if I got into like a really Irish Catholic area, I don't necessarily know if I'm talking my way out of it.
Can I ask you a question? Roddy Piper, right? You look at like Warrior, and you look at like Dusty. You know, I went. You know, Warrior was more like cardiovascular. You could tell he was having breathing issues, right? Dusty like really didn't look ultra healthy, right? I mean, he was like kind of weirdly skinny. It definitely looked like there was something wrong with Dusty. It really did. And, you know, I kind of could tell he was like a little sickly. Dusty. And Warrior, you could tell there was something wrong with him because of the way he was breathing and stuff. Piper like really looked like he was in like great shape, didn't he? Like he was, you know, he had a little belly and stuff, but he was in like, he looked good. Like he looked great. Like, he looked like he could actually go out there and fight if he put it like maybe a month into the gym, and decided to cut down on carbs and, to have a couple matches. I'm shocked to hear this.
He definitely didn't fall off. He didn't really fall apart. He didn't really look that bad at all.
I'm bummed.
I was going to say it could be the result of years of whatever he may or may not have been doing.
True.
To stay in that type of condition.
You know what, though? Piper, for a guy, 61, he went out looking like a champion. He wasn't, he was on top of his game. And in a way, I know people like to say, like, oh, like Chris Candido. They would say, well, if Chris Candido died, he'd want to go out looking like the best he could look. And I don't know. I kind of view that as kind of like life wasted a little bit. He looked so vibrant and young, Piper, even at 61, I hate to say it, he's a guy I thought we'd have around for a long time. Not taking anything away from Warrior or Dusty. I love those guys, but I could tell something was up with them, and Piper just, like Eddie Guerrero, it just happened out of nowhere, man.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's what a lifetime of steroid abuse or possible steroid abuse could do for you. So you drop dead at 61.
I can't speak to that, but you have to think with all the Piper stories out there, no disrespect because I love them, that there was some lifestyle choices, whether it was drugs in the 80s or some sort of steroids. Not saying that he did or did not, but that stuff was in the locker room. We know this. It's been documented, and no one's shy about it. Hogan's even talked about it himself and some of his own vices. So it is what it is. I mean, it's a different atmosphere. I mean, I could tell you right now. I mean, I get super stressed sometimes at work, and you go home and you drink. You make yourself feel better. And I'm not judging anyone. It's just I guess to everyone out there, think about your choices. You can make choices every day. It's sad about Piper, man. I don't know.
It really is a bummer. You know what? It's not like he's had a huge, major impact on Raw over the last couple of years or whatever, but he comes back for old timers matches. He comes back for other matches, and he's always a draw. It's not like somebody like Sergio Slaughter, who they might, let's say, like 3 words or Hexel Jim Duggan or somebody like that. They can put Piper in the ring and have him do a Piper's Pit.
I do think it's admirable, though, that, and it says a lot about Piper and his courage, and I'm not saying that this is right. And, we were kidding around about Hulk Hogan a few weeks ago, but Piper actually did go to bat for Hogan. And that was not a popular thing to do. And it says a lot about Piper's character as a friend to Hogan. And, Piper obviously, didn't feel that way at all, the way Hogan felt. But he's a friend of Hogan's. And sometimes being a friend is a hard thing to do when one of your friends is under the gun. And, it says a lot about Piper that he stuck up for his friend Hulk Hogan, I mean, that wasn't the most popular thing to do, but he really did stick up for him. And it's funny because, Hogan's one of those guys who might have cried wolf a little bit, where he would say, the Hot Rod was my buddy and he supported me, and we'd all be rolling our eyes like, oh man, here we go again, like Savage. But Piper really did respect Hogan, and he really did love Hogan, and that's cool, Yeah,
you know what, I think that it is, and I think that ultimately everybody's thinking, oh, you know what, Hogan's never going to be back in the ring again. I think at some point they'll get over it, and I think it'll be sooner rather than later, because
they have to.
I think the last thing that WWE wants to do is have him go out as a freaking disgraced racist and then drop dead 3 years later.
I agree. Well, Hogan needs to man up and go out there, and if he truly is apologetic, which I kind of think he is, but I can't prove it, and go apologize, man. Ask for the mic and go apologize. And, a lot of people went to bat for him. Iron Sheik, who goes after everybody, Virgil. There was a bunch of guys that, even The Rock, said he never saw that. And a lot of guys went to bat for Hulkster, and,
Exactly. It was still a tough fight of Hulkster.
But we don't have that many legends left, they're dropping like flies, man.
Yeah, I mean, geez, seriously, like I was saying, it was literally like pillow talk with Hogan. I mean, can you honestly say that you've never been lying around with your wife on a Saturday morning after a big Friday night and just went off on a somewhat less than stellar spew on who you may or may not want your children to marry down the road.
No, because I haven't had girls, so I don't see a scenario where that would happen. But who knows, man? I mean,
especially in privacy of your own home. That's the thing that sucked, is because it was literally like somebody taped it. It's like super super illegal. I mean,
yeah, but it is kind of weird though, like that he feels that way deep down. Like at the end of the day, I mean, I wouldn't really care who my kid's gonna marry. I mean, if they love him, I mean, whatever. I mean, that's different. I don't know. I don't know. I feel bad for Hogan, man. It's just, he grew up that way and that's the way I guess he feels. It just, he ruined his own legacy, but you're right. I mean, he was in his privacy of his own home, and you got to think what you're doing out there, people. There's iPhones everywhere now. You say the wrong thing, your career is over. Your life is over as you know it. So, think about what you say out there, man. I think we're all in positions where we lose our cool, and not to the degree Hogan did, but, I could think of scenarios where maybe at work I got fired up and said something I don't want to say, and geez, man, you lose your cool and things change. So think about what you say out there, folks. Your words are powerful. We're getting a little serious here tonight on Raw Reaction.
Yeah, you know what? I feel like it's nice to have a realistic conversation or two every once in a while on here, especially in light of the Rowdy Piper. I mean, this is the sort of thing. You almost feel like Piper could come back and have an in-ring segment with Hogan and let him apologize on it and just really put him over as, hey, you know what? It's like Virgil liked him, the New Day liked him, all these people like him. Hogan's not that bad. Hogan apologizes for what he said. And
Mark
I think
Henry was interesting.
It would eat it up.
Mark Henry was interesting. He just couldn't believe it. He was just kind of like, this guy I looked up to, and I just can't get over that came out of his mouth, and I think Booker T felt the same way. Booker T's like, this is a guy who helped me get to where I was.
Yeah. What I was gonna say, I didn't see I saw Booker T, or some of Booker T's comments. What did Mark Henry say?
He was just disappointed. Like, you never know what people really think, and he just said that Hogan was nothing but respectful to him and helped him out, and just surprised. And, it is funny, though. You look at all the top guys, they all hate Hogan, that, they say they got held down, but you really go to see that, like, the lower mid-card to mid-card guys, they really appreciated Hogan. It shows you, like, Ultimate Warrior, supposedly, and this isn't shit I'm making up, he wouldn't talk to anybody. He'd be in his own locker room, and really the only guys he'd even talk to a little bit were the guys he had to work a match with that were at the top of the card. That's how he felt. He was so much bigger than the rest of the roster. And you hear all these stories about Hogan helping everyone on the roster from the top to the bottom. And I really believed that some of the stuff he was saying at Tough Enough when I was watching the episodes. I'm like, he really does like these kids and care about these kids, but you don't know what's real and fake with Hogan. You never know what's gimmick or not. It's too bad. He really ruined. He was Babe Ruth, and he still is, obviously, but he's gonna always go down as, the guy had his quirks, whereas like a guy like Bruno Sammartino, he didn't have, a tenth of the charisma as Hogan, but was obviously a much better worker and a legend with no match as far as his world title run. I mean, but he's squeaky clean, man. Sammartino is, he's the man. He is the man. He's the Babe Ruth, really, if you think about it now. So, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's almost like not to get into too much baseball analogy, it's almost like a Honus Wagner, like before WWE got super mainstream. I mean, he was more of an independence legend, almost like the sort of similar to Andre the Giant as a heel. I mean, he wasn't really the head of WWE. I mean, he got his push here or there, but he was never.
If we went back in that locker room, who knows, what some of these guys do. You know what I mean? So it's all relative. It's just it goes to show you just don't put people on a pedestal, because sooner or later they'll probably let you down, because we're all human. You look at athletes, you look at somebody like Ronda Rousey, who is our athlete of the moment. let's enjoy Ronda Rousey. You know why? I'll give you a good little thing because I really enjoyed, and not that I was ever not a Ronda fan. I think I've been a great fan of hers, and I really love what she does. And you know what I really liked was how she handled this woman that took every angle she could to bait Ronda Rousey into a payday by setting up matches with her friends and beating both of them and engaging Rousey after those matches. And then when she finally got the match, you really saw the true colors of Betch Correia, who basically said Rousey should go kill herself. And for those who don't know, obviously Ronda Rousey's dad committed suicide when she was living in their house. And
I did not know that. And
yeah,
that's pretty tasteless.
What's that?
I said that's pretty tasteless, especially assuming that she actually knew that.
Dana White came out and said Betch Correia definitely knew. And Rousey was just like so devastated somebody would talk about her family like that. And then after all that happens, Correia goes out of her way in the weigh-in, in the photo shoot, to try and intimidate Rousey by yelling in her face. And to watch the poise of Ronda Rousey, who just kept her cool and said, I'm in her country, Rocky IV style, gonna knock her the hell out. I didn't say it completely. And she's gonna humiliate her and pulverize her very calmly. Ronda Rousey did everything she said she would do. She knocked that girl out cold. And that is not Ronda Rousey's game. And that is a cool thing. So for the moment, you can put Ronda on the pedestal till she does something bad. But you know what? That's why we root for these guys. You know, for a day like that, Ronda Rousey was great this weekend. And that woman pushed Ronda to a really dark place and a bad place. And you shouldn't do that to somebody. To do that to somebody, to take the weakest moment on their life and of who they are and to just destroy them. Hopefully people won't do that to Hogan. He's down and out. I mean, they've taken everything away from him. His family's gone. He's been embarrassed with the Ultimate Warrior stuff. He got fired from WWE for this. You know what? Let's remember the great moments with Hogan. And I'm not condoning what he said or did in any way. But, you know, remember all the good things about him too. You can't, you know, it's disgusting what he said. I mean, but he's an athlete, right? Separate the athlete and the character from the person. And that's why we watch sports. Because all you hypocrites that are Cowboys fans or whoever Michael Vick winds up playing for, I mean, I could not cheer for the Jets when Michael Vick was in the game. I could not. I cannot support someone who kills dogs. Period. Can't. That's my own bias, and I'm a little hypocritical there based on what I'm saying, but that's how strongly I feel. You know? And it's tough to support somebody who believes bad things. And I'm not saying you should, but enjoy the moments like Ronda Rousey where an athlete does something awesome and something cool. And we could all support Ronda taking this biatch out, okay? For straight up. She did that for anyone who's ever been bullied. And that was bullying. She was being mentally bullied because that was the only way this woman could beat Rousey. Or you think about American Pharaoh, right? You know, little horse. Well, you're a horse. You're not supposed to have meaning, right? You're just a horse that takes people on rides. No, he goes on to be the athlete of the year, right? He does something no one's done in 37 years. He's become the heartthrob of the country.
He's done something, I'm going to correct you, he's done something no horse has ever done. Won the Triple Crown and followed it up with the Midsummer Classic. I'm going to call it I'm naming it right now. It's the Triple Crown.
Hey man, if he wins breeders on top of it, the next horse that wants to match him would have to win all 5 of those races. I'm with you, man. But it's a cool story. It's like, you know what? There's a hero or an athlete to get behind. That's not going to let you down. He's a horse, right? I mean,
I don't know. There could be a sex tape out there somewhere.
Oh, stop. But it's a cool thing. And that's what we need to watch in sports right now. So have fun with John Cena, right? You know, he's doing all this cool stuff with the U.S. title and we have him around. He's doing cool things. We have this youth movement in WWE. You know, college football every year, there's a new crop of college athletes, and don't let the Florida State thing ruin sports for you. You know, enjoy it. And Roddy Piper was all about that. We always enjoyed his entertainment, and not just his wrestling, but the entertainer himself. And he transcended that. And Ronda Rousey was a friend of Roddy Piper's, coincidentally. So it's a good way to really wrap us up. So I don't know if there's anything you want to add, but I just wanted to get all that off my chest tonight, Vic.
No, well said. And I think that it's important that we, especially after having a week to sort of reflect on Hogan. I don't think it's the end of the world for him. I think that right now, I think WWE is doing the vigilant thing and taking him off the air, sort of giving him the Chris Benoit treatment. But like we're saying, I think that at some point there can be WWE will be over it, and there'll be a triumphant return by Hulkster.
Well, I'll say this: Hogan will be resilient, and maybe he'll turn it around and he'll make a positive out of this and truly be sorry for what he did. But I will say, you know, Piper, whatever. That don't mean whatever. I mean Piper in our thoughts, obviously, but what it shows you, and you know, even talking here tonight, and I had a bad day myself, and it's just, there's a beautiful world out there, folks, and enjoy it, because nothing's guaranteed the next day, and have fun with it, and enjoy the little things in your life, and don't work yourself into a grave or get, you know, I worry so much about work stuff, and you know what, man? Tonight was a nice opportunity to leave that for a little bit, and you know, I'm going to heed my own advice. How's that sound?
I like it, man. I like it. I think that, like you said, I mean, I think WWE is what it is in some cases. It's an escape from reality for a couple hours.
You're
something
released.
that we love to do, something that we love to chill out, and something that really won't get into much trouble unless your wife went into labor 3 hours ago and you haven't heard her and haven't picked up the phone because you're watching Raw.
Let me say this.
In which case you might be in trouble.
If you want to escape from reality, there is a show on Wednesday nights on VH1 that I know the WWE fans appreciate. It's called Twinning. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I haven't seen it. What is it? Is it like
it is the most bizarre show I've ever seen. It's a game show for twins, and they put them in separate houses, and basically the two sets of twins, it's such a weird thing. They're actually doing kind of the same thing in the other house, and they don't really realize it. They gravitate to the same people, like the other twin. It's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. It's crazy.
Wow. That's, I'm gonna have to watch this show. I'm surprised WWE didn't pick it up for WWE Network yet.
And right on before that is Dating Naked, which is a very bizarre show.
Interesting.
So there's a lot of good shows on, you know, that on TV. You got Tough Enough. You got Catfish back on TV, which in my mind is the greatest show on TV, Catfish. They should condense it to a half an hour, but there's nothing better than seeing someone get catfished and seeing the giant man or the giant woman that they thought was the little hottie.
Yeah, exactly. It never turns out to be like, oh wow, this beautiful model who never wants to FaceTime or never wants to talk turns out to be an actual beautiful model.
You know, that's where the Skype comes in, guys. I mean, just have a Skype rule. You cannot get embarrassed on national TV if they Skype you, because then you know they are who they say they are.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, something's fishy.
Every computer now has a webcam, all of them.
Yeah, I mean, like I've tried to make certain arrangements on Craigslist in the past.
Dude, my work computer has a webcam. They all have webcams.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried to make certain arrangements on Craigslist in the past, mostly to sell sporting event tickets.
And if you really like them, mail them your iPad to borrow, and then FaceTime them or whatever.
Exactly. If you don't trust them with your iPad or
you shouldn't
be in like a 6-month long relationship with this person.
Exactly. Well, so, guys, I appreciate it.
An ounce of prevention is needed every once in a while.
I went way over the time I allotted tonight, but it was fun. I hope everyone enjoyed the show. Big Dick, hope you enjoyed yourself tonight. You're a hero. It's all good, guys. Kev, anything you want to add as we wrap it up? I'll take that as a no. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week. For the Angry Tensai and the Big Dick.
You're listening to the Raw Reaction on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.